So I have mentioned this topic in my videos before, and I've also seen a couple of these topics floating around in the community before. However, I've never seen a direct video giving this warning to this community because it is extremely important, and I'm surprised it doesn't exist yet. The foxtail that you may have bought is possibly from an abused fox. In fact, if you haven't done research on this part, it's most likely the case. Hi guys, welcome back to my Therian territory. You may call me Thorn, and in today's video I wanted to spark the topic again of tales from cruel fur farms. What a lot of Therians unfortunately do not know is that about 80% of all of the foxtails from the market are from cruel fur farms. Owning a foxtail, whether you are a canine Therian or not, is a very common signature Therian thing. A lot of Therians happen to own foxtails, but what the danger about it is that a lot of people do not do research and therefore often buy tails from shops that are incredibly shady and most likely got their foxtails from cruel fur farms. Just like in my previous video, I will not be showing any video footage of how foxes are treated within cruel fur farms, but it is by far the most terrible thing I have ever seen in my life. Foxes are being held in extremely small cages, which are often not clean at all. Often they are paired in very big groups of foxes, of which a lot of foxes are often aggressive because of the poor quality of life, and therefore they start attacking one another. Foxes are being stacked on top of each other, literally no space to move whatsoever. Those cages are literally being thrown around from many meters above the ground, and they do not care for broken bones, they do not care for wounds, they literally do not care about the foxes in any way. And how exactly they die is even more terrible because they do not care about the fox getting euthanized, for example. The fox is often either killed on the spot without sedation whatsoever, or they are literally skinned alive. If you buy a tail from a cruel fur farm, which chances are big, you will be financially supporting this company who is continuously abusing these foxes. You are literally financially supporting the abuse of animals. However, fortunately, there are shops out there who know about this problem, and they always make sure that their foxes are ethically sourced, meaning that the foxes have lived a good life in a lot of space and have experienced no pain whatsoever while dying. Either that, or they sell second-hand tails that are otherwise being thrown away, so it's also to prevent waste. Now you might be thinking, how the heck am I gonna find a tail that is from an ethical shop or from a cruel fur farm? Well, luckily there's a couple of indicators, and that's exactly why I'm making this video today, to help you guys out in how to find a tail that is ethically sourced and not from a cruel fur farm. And you might be wondering, why do I keep referring to this tail? Unfortunately, even when you've done research, sometimes you can make the mistake of still accidentally buying a tail from a cruel fur farm. This tail is from a cruel fur farm. This tail is not. All of my other tails are not from cruel fur farms. This tail was a pure accident. I literally did not know that this tail was from a cruel fur farm, but I've learned from my mistakes, and I'm going to prevent you guys from making the same mistakes. The first big indicator is that most, if not almost all, of the foxtails that you will find from cruel fur farms are from Asia. This is because in the laws of Asia, animal rights are not being protected in any way. In fact, there barely are any animal rights, and therefore they literally just do not give a crap, which is incredibly unfortunate. But now you know, if the shop is from Asia, do not buy it from there, ever. This also means that big sites that originate from Asian countries are often a massive no-go, because 99% of the shops within those Asian sites are actually Asian and are actually cruel fur farms. So do not buy any foxtails ever from Wish, AliExpress, eBay and Amazon. These 4 sites are Asian and they sell Asian cruel fur farm tails. And I'm just saying, you might be thinking, oh, I may just buy some faux fur tails, so let me just go to these sites and buy faux fur tails instead. A lot of shops on these sites pretend that their faux fur tails are faux fur tails, while in reality they are actually real fur tails from cruel fur farms. So please be extremely careful with this. If you have seen a couple of real fur tails, you will eventually start to notice how to spot a real fur tail from a faux fur tail. Faux fur tails simply look fake. They don't look real in any way, and they will never look real in any way. Even if they are painted in any color variation, they may as well still be real fur tails. Real fur tails, for example, often have an extremely recognizable shape, so they start out in a more slimmer tip and then they become broader along the way. So now I want to start with how to spot a cruel fur farm tail from an ethical fur farm tail. Not just the real tails, but also how to spot them on the sides themselves. The first indicator on how to spot a cruel fur farm tail is that they often use stock photos. This is because their own tails often don't look that great, so they just pick a random photo from the internet. That's definitely a cruel fur farm tail because they are just not genuine when it comes to which tails they are providing, so don't even get near those. Another big indicator of how to spot a cool fur farm tails is the use of this very specific lobster clam. I will show you guys the difference between clams. As you can tell, these are very often used within Asia. They are most often gold, but sometimes also silver. As you can tell, it has no thumb hook. It's a little bulky in a way, so it's not round, it's more edged, and you can open it up through this. This specific lobster clam is a giant indicator that your tail is from a cruel fur farm. So if you see the specific lobster clam on the photos of the tail that you are considering to buy, don't buy it. It's from a cruel fur farm. Another indicator is that a lot of cruel fur farm tails are often smaller, slimmer, just don't look as healthy in general. Because as you can tell, tails from ethical fur farms are often very big, very broad, very bushy, and have a lot of fur within it. You can sometimes kind of tell within the picture already that the tail is just incredibly slim and small. That's most likely from a cruel fur farm. If you want to find out if the tail that you already possess is maybe from a cruel fur farm, you can also look inside, because the leather inside of the tail is often very poorly scraped because they just don't care for quality tails that much. This tail is a poor example of that because this one happens to be scraped pretty well, most likely because it's been bleached. It's either poorly scraped or moldy or both, because poorly scraped tails get more moldy faster. So yeah, generally terrible quality. Another indicator on how to spot cruel fur farm tails is whether it is bleached or not. I do have to say, not all bleached or painted tails are immediately from cruel fur farms, because some shops prefer to bleach or color their tails anyway. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an indicator of being from a cruel fur farm, but if it adds up to other points that I've just mentioned, then it can surely be an indicator. Because naturally, when you look at an ethically sourced tail, the tips and the white bits are usually a little bit blonde. Actual white just doesn't really exist in nature. Usually it's like very, very light blonde. However, when it's been painted, the white parts of your tail often look a little purplish or bluish in a way. I'll show a picture with an example here. And the last indicator that is also incredibly important to keep into account is that tails from cruel fur farms are often a lot cheaper than tails from ethically sourced farms. Which makes sense in a way, because if you actually want to care for the foxes that you are going to farm, you will need to put money into it. You will need more money in order to care for your foxes, and therefore your tails will immediately become more expensive. However, if you literally do not give a shit about your foxes while you farm them and you abuse them in every single way possible, they're gonna be a lot cheaper because you can just throw them out whenever. I would say if your tail is like above $20, maybe even $25 to $30, then your tail is most likely from a good farm, especially if they don't possess any of the other red flags I already mentioned. However, if it's under $20, it might already become a little tricky. You really might have to look into the other red flags I already mentioned. And if it's under $10, just don't even bother. It's most likely from a cruel fur farm. Now I'm going to give you guys an extreme example of a cruel fur farm shop and then an extreme example of a good fur farm shop. This shop is quite obviously selling tails from a cruel fur farm. The first indicator is that it is from one of the shops I've just mentioned, so it's either from Wish, AliExpress, eBay or Amazon. The second indicator is that it is a stock photo. Now as you can tell, the tail is also rather small and rather slim compared to the tails that are sold in normal and ethical fur farms. The whites of the tail are obviously rather purple or bluish, so they are definitely painted over. The other indicator is that the tail is insanely cheap. And as cherry on top, this tail is sold as a faux fur tail. It's actually not a faux fur tail, you can definitely tell. Now let's look at a shop that is most definitely not from a cruel fur farm. I've actually gotten a couple of my tails from this shop. The shop is from Etsy, which is a great place to look for fur farm tails. However, even here you will have to look into where the shop is coming from, because it's on Etsy that I accidentally bought my cruel fur farm tail. When I looked into it, the shop turned out to be from China. This shop is however not from any Asian countries, which is a big plus. Now as you can tell, the shop holds a lot of pictures with a lot of tails available, tail, and these are definitely not stock photos. They are literally just made with the camera and most definitely not plucked from the internet, so you know that you are actually buying one of these tails. The second indicator is that they definitely do not have that one signature lobster clam from Asia, which is also really great. The tails look big, healthy, they don't seem to be painted over in any way, so that's a really great indicator that the shop is not selling tails from a cruel fur farm. If you really want to be extra sure, sometimes the shop even mentions within the description of the shop or the description of the tails that you want to buy that the tails are actually ethically sourced. So I will be listing all of the red flags that I just mentioned within the description, as well as a list of all the shops that I know are from ethical fur farms. If you happen to know somebody who wants to buy a fur tail, this video might be extremely important to share with them, especially if they haven't done excessive research about it before. I've also witnessed a situation before where a Therian went to a local shop and actually found cruel fur farm tails there, and the owner didn't even know that they were from cruel fur farms. So they helped educate the shop owner about how to find ethically sourced tails. So if you happen to find cruel fur farm tails within a local shop, please educate the sellers. It is extremely important. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. I really hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please leave a like down below or maybe comment down below. And if you really like my videos and want to see more in the future, perhaps consider to subscribe. And I'll be seeing you guys in my Therian territory in the next video. Bye.